On this episode of the O2 Garage, I'm still wearing my Crocs, and we get the front end finished on the bug. I'm an idiot. So the bug's coming along pretty good at the moment, but there's a couple of things we still need to do to it. One of which is it sits too low and it does actually bang and bottom out a little bit too much. So we're going to bring it up about 1/2 inch to give those torsion bars some sort of hope of providing some cushioning at the front. At the same time, we'll also be able to set up that fuel tank and get that fuel tank finally sorted out and done. And at the same time, I'm going to give the brakes another adjust at the front because when we were driving it, it was pulling to the left-hand side. So a little bit of work to do. Let's just get it up and start cranking. When you're adjusting the front beam, it's going to be a bit tricky because you've got to keep an eye on the ride height. Now, at this point, I only want to bring it up about 1 inch to give the torsion bar a bit more of a hope of cushioning the dampening on the front of it as it drives along. Jack's under the front right at the center, so it lifts it in unison. So I'm going to take a couple of measurements, slowly jack it up and try and increase it that inch. I've actually taken it up about 1.25 inches, so that should give it a whole lot more travel. And with any luck, make it ride a lot nicer. Now with any luck, when I let this down now, it should drop down but not down as far. So let's see what happens. Bingo. And I can tell by where the jack is underneath, there's a hell of a lot more clearance in the front end now. So it looks like we've got some suspension into that front end. All right, so from what I can actually work out, this side here is not as well adjusted as the other side, and when you put your foot on the brakes, it drags it on that side. So we need to get this off, get this one adjusted. Okay, we're organised. We've adjusted the brakes. I've adjusted the toe out on it as well. We're ready to put the wheels back on, lower it down and have a look. And now it's time to tidy up this area in here. And look, it's all here. It's just a little bit rough and ready. And there's a few holes that go through into the cabin. They've got to be blanked off. Wiring's got to be tidied up. And it can be presented a little bit better than what it is. You can see the tank's in. And I've got a few other little bits and pieces we'd like to add. So let's get stuck. All right, Tom. So what we're doing is we're just fixing up the front of the bug here. And if you come in and have a look underneath, can you see anywhere where there might be a hole leading through to the cabin in here? Yeah?
There's a couple of holes.
Can you point a hole out?
Maybe a couple of holes.
Yeah, there's one over there, there's one over here as well. So can you think of any way that you might be able to maybe cap that off?
Silicone maybe?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Well, here, take this. This is what I normally use. And it's a pretty tried and true method. This is actually like a rubber strip and a little bit of silicone as well. So I can see one that we have to do over there already. And so what I normally do is I normally cut like a square, because a square seems to work better than a round circle. Something as simple as that. Easy. You get your silicone, which it doesn't really matter what it is because it's going to be inside the car. So that's all pretty cool. And you give yourself a bit of a circle of silicone to about the same size of the hole. Something like that. And then you go over and you just poke it on. There's a nice big one up the back there. And we'll just stick it straight on. And what that does, that seals the hole, stops any air going in, any smell, any fuel smell, anything like that, and just keeps the cabin cool. Come down here and have a look at this, mate. Can you have a look at those holes in there? See all those? Mm-hmm. So all of those have got to be blocked up, and so there is an engine number there, so we've got to be a little bit careful as to how we do it. So I might just cut a piece of metal to just sit on there and silicone it on, just so it looks a lot cleaner than what it is. There's also a couple of holes here for various bits and pieces, and I think they would hold wheels down, I don't know, in some stages. So what we might do is we might just put some bolts in there, an interference bolt with a little bit of silicone, and that will just clean that area up too. So the fuel tank is actually kicked up a little bit in the way it sits in here, because we've lowered it so much the control arms and stuff come up and hit the bottom of the tank. So we've spaced the tank up a little bit. Now we've got a couple of areas that have just got space, so I'm thinking we'll use a bit of this stuff, some high density foam, cut it to shape, wedge it in, and maybe put a little bit of glue on it, and that'll hold it in place and stop any air coming through. So let's start measuring up. All right, Tom, this is all looking really good under here. Now we do have to build that piece that goes across that covers all that, but we're going to need to get in the back there to do some bits and pieces. And we got this from good old Savers. Look at that, mate. $6. You're going to be happy with that, don't you?
Yeah.
Now, down the front here, mate, stay there. I've got something for you. Have a look at this thing. What do you reckon about that?
Yeah.
You know what that is?
Office bag.
It is. It's actually an old office bag. How does this thing work? I keep forgetting how it works. Ah, there we go. Click that down. It's an old office bag. And what I thought we could do with that is we could actually pop that in there as a toolkit. Maybe pop some tools in that and put a little thing on it and hold it in place, and that can take our tools. What do you reckon? Okay. All right, let's find some tools and chuck them in there. Okay, so here's some of the old tools that we've got kicking around the place, and we don't need too many tools to go into that toolbox, just enough to get us out of trouble. So there's a screwdriver. I think what we'll also do is we'll probably put some rope in there as well, maybe a couple of cable ties and some black electrical tape, and that should be good. And here's the toolbox ready to go. So we've got tow rope, we've got jumper leads, hammer, tools, cable ties, black electrical tape, all those little bits and pieces you're going to need in case you ever break down on the side of the road with a Volkswagen. But there's no radiator hoses, no heater hoses, and no coolant, so I didn't fall for that trick. All right, Tom, well, there we go, mate. Toolbox goes in the front, nice and easy, and that's not going to move too far. That's got everything in there, and everything looks nice and clean. So apart from that piece of wood that we've got to put across to dress that, I would say that this is done.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Let's close him up. Bring him on down. And the front of the bug's done. Saturday afternoon in the O2 garage. Front wheel's off the bug, that's off getting fixed up. But what we're going to do today is we're going to do these little 3 jobs. That's the front Nerf bar that's got to be painted and put on. That's the handbrake that's got to be fitted. And that's also the front sway bar. And everything we've got is here to put it on. So we might as well just jump in, get it done, and the bug will be one step closer to being on the road. So right about now, there's probably a few of you saying, hey, hang on a second, he hasn't done enough prep work to paint this front sway bar. But the reality of it is I actually have. This and the front nerf bar don't need much work at all because they're at the very front of the Volkswagen, and they're going to cop all the rocks and the dirt and trolleys and rubbish bins and anything else that Thomas and I run into. So it's got to be easy to be touched up. So if you prepare in preparation, I think you can say that, of maintaining something very simply like with a quick coat of black paint, then all is good in the long run. You know, there's another reason sometimes why prepping stuff like sway bars and front bars and things and only just doing a really light job is important, because depending on what the theme of the car is that you're actually doing up, this one's a bit of a street rat rod patinaed Volkswagen Baja where not everything's perfect on this thing. You guys have seen that. And this restoration work that I'm sort of doing, you know, modification restoration work, doesn't have to be perfect. It's got to match the car in keeping with the theme. If it was too good, it wouldn't look right. So in this case, I know this sounds really weird, but half-assed is actually good enough for the visuals on this. So, I'm good at doing things half-assed. All right, it's time to put this front bar on, and whilst the bar itself sort of sits in under here, something sort of in that sort of fashion like that, the reality of it is it just protects the front of the bug in case you hit anything low. And at this height, there's a good chance we're going to hit a fair bit. So after this goes on, we can then whack on the sway bar. Oh man. Okay, final link of the chain is this, which is the sway bar. So we've got our mounts both sides, two mounts that come off the lower control arm, and then the sway bar sort of sits in the middle. Pretty simple, pretty standard sort of stuff. Not hard. It all slips together and then presses together, of all things. So big one goes on the inside, small one goes on the outside. Bingo. On the bug, it's complete. The front end's done. We don't have to do anything more. Now we can turn our attention to the inside.